Hey guys, the brush for today, this guy's been soaking all night. This is a Stirling Boar brush. He is a part of my Boarathon, 7 or 8 brushes that I'm putting through rotation that have all kind of risen at the same rate. And so I'm able to observe the different properties and way they act and their break-in practices as well. I don't usually mean to soak them all night, but this just worked out this time, and that's happened a few times, so it's kind of fair, hopefully, as long as it doesn't always happen to the same brush. We are going to be stepping into the Nacet. This is the 205 use blade, so I think I'm going to put the next 5 dots right there to make 210, and then we've got dots back here as well. Good news is I can branch out to the top of this envelope right here if need be, and then these tabs right here. This thing almost feels like the paper wrapper is going to fall apart. And I stopped at the near the end of September, near the beginning of September after austere August, where I used this the whole time. And here is one side of the blade, and then here's the other. And you can see the, if you go back to my earlier videos, you'll see there was an X there. Right now you can only see the 2 bottom parts of it as the, I'm not rubbing it or anything, but I guess that's the way the blade, whenever the blade touches the razor, you know, that sort of thing. And then it's been so long since I've used this guy. Okay, so yeah, this must be the top. I'm putting the X down, and that's a little side experiment that I chose to do with this blade. So what am I using it in? My timeless open comb 68. The 68 gap I find is a wonderful gap. If you get the scalloped or the smooth, then you get such a smooth shave. Boy, I just love it. And still efficient. Nice good cutter too. But then if you bump up to the open comb, I find this to be much too rough to use every day or really at all with any kind of new blade. Well, this is not a new blade. All right, so I'm going to put the X. See, it's been so long, I forgot. Yeah, the clean side will go toward the top cap because that keeps it clean. And the X will go down toward the base plate. And there we are. There's not really any way for me to concretely prove that I use this every time. You just kind of have to believe me. Because even if you saw me put it in the razor like this, the minute I clipped away to rinse myself or to put on some water, or even the minute I put this down, I could potentially grab an identical razor with a different blade. So that's why I'm not super concerned about proving that it's the same blade every time, but I will show it to you every time so that there's, you know, a pretty, I think most reasonable people are going to not have a problem with it. I did change it up a little bit. I'm going to try the scalloped head, the top cap, the scalloped top cap today. And we'll see if that poses any difference to the smooth cap on the other base plates that I've used. Not really any difference, but I think it looks nice with the open comb. The soap we're going to use today, Barrister and Mann Rsrv Spice. Haven't used this in a long time. Been talking lately through different online places, people rating things best of 2019 or your favorite soap bases, and this is one that I always mention. If it's not my favorite, it's my second favorite, probably. And Spice is an awesome scent, kind of built around the original recipe of Shulton Old Spice, and I'm a big fan. And I just haven't used it nearly enough because there are just so many great soaps out there, aren't there? And let me throw some water on my face. I believe about a day and a half of growth. One nice thing, if you marathon a blade and you get such high uses like this, it's nice if you shave every day. It's a little more comfortable. I looked at my stats, and I think it said a 30-second load on the Rsrv base with about 3 teaspoons of water was a good ballpark to get 3 passes plus. So just for grins, let's do a 40-second load, especially because I haven't used this guy in a while. Even though he has been capped, soaps can tend to lose a little bit of the water. Some people don't like the Rsrv because some people find it difficult to lather, difficult to get a good lather out of it. I've never really had a problem with it. Last time I used this base, not this soap necessarily, I ran it a little too thin, so I'll watch out for that. Now, it performed a great shave, but it just wasn't creamy that I was looking for at the time. All right, so let's do a 40-second load. We're going to run around to 0 here in just a second, and that'll be a good marker. Now, a 40-second load with this brush could be similar to a 50-second load with a soft boar brush, because this guy is on the stiff side. He's not comfortable yet, but he's not scritchy either. He's softened up enough to where he is not scritchy and scratchy, but he has been very reluctant to get soft like my Samogs and my Zeniths have. The Omega I have as well is one that's being similar to this guy. Stubborn, not wanting to change. And there is a 40-second load. Looks like plenty of soap on the brush. Rinse out now the threads here. Some people, I think, just kind of like to then take this and start on their face. Maybe that's maybe this base doesn't really lend itself to that, but I bet it does, because I mean, it's still an in production soap base as far as I know. And so if face latherers were finding it hard to work, I'm pretty sure it would have been gone by now. Oh yeah, that scent is nice and strong, coming up to my nose from this distance without a problem. I remember the first time I used this base, I'm pretty sure it was this very soap, silkiness, just the feel of the lather, that level of creaminess and silkiness, smoothness it just wasn't matched by anything else I'd experienced. So even with no water added, we've gotten a nice little paste going. See that part right there? So what I'm going to do is let's just see if it can take water early on. Then we may discover a reason why people have a problem with it. I don't know. I think my guess as to why many people have a problem lathering this guy is that they're just not giving it enough soap. People say it ends up kind of stringy. I've never experienced that before. Maybe it's because wet lathers is one of my focus goals, you know, and I've kind of always been that way, and so maybe I've never stumbled into that trap, if you will, of that thick, stringy, pasty, weird lather. Hopefully it's not a soap base that needs me to take more time with it early on in the adding water process. We can maybe try that next time I use it, just to see if there's a difference. I go around for a little bit, and then I push it down from the sides like that. That also helps to circulate the lather that's inside the brush. As I'm forcing lather into the brush, that's kind of pushing some of the lather out, and so we hopefully get a better mix that way. Looks good, smells terrific. refill my syringe. Let's go ahead and add half a teaspoon. Work that in. I might stop at 3 depending on how things look, because my notes said that 30 seconds with 3 was a little too wet. Now the notes aren't an exact thing, but it's a ballpark. Especially if I'm using the same brush, then it's going to be closer, probably closer than a ballpark. But you know, a lot of people have misunderstood my measuring. I'm not trying to measure to only put a certain amount of water into the lather. I use the syringe just to make it easy to put any amount in the water, in the lather. And then at the end, I have a tally. I know how much I used. And that's handy because some soaps need 1.5 teaspoons. And some soaps need more like 6 teaspoons. And if you know which one to expect, that can get you to a good lather a little quicker. Though the quantity and the texture of lather is definitely improved in that last half teaspoon that I added. And now we've got 3 teaspoons in it. Can feel the stiffness of the boar bristles with this brush. Many boar brushes are not stiff like this one. This is a very dense brush. I got a feeling it's going to be a really good one. When it's going to get that way, when the tips are going to split and become super soft, I don't know. Some omegas take a few years to get that way. Is this going to be like that? I don't know. But I got a feeling if it ever does get that way, it might just be one of my favorite boars. With a little bit of backbone, you know, keep the backbone, keep the density, but have that softness and be able to focus those soft tips right on my face instead of being too flexy and having little backbone, too much splay and all that, where the tips are not on me. All right, well, that lather looks terrific in terms of just general attractiveness. Is it too dry? I don't think it's too wet. Now we had a nice long peak right there as it dropped. I feel like we're kind of close. Let's just take a finger. Oh, that's just slick. Why don't we just use this? If I have to add water, I will. All right. Water to my face. And let's scrub on some of this lather. Nice, strong scent. It is refreshing. It is just all over me. I'm really curious to see if we use this same soap tomorrow. Add water a little more slowly. I dump those 2 teaspoons into it right away. See if I get a different result. This almost is acting like a wet lather that just needs a little bit more water to really cream up. But then it's also kind of acting like a lather that Might have too much water in it. Just see what happens if we just add a little bit more. This soap might actually be 2 years old. I think that's actually a pretty real possibility. Sometimes it doesn't matter too much about that. Sometimes it matters in terms of the scent. There's Old Spice hard pucks that are decades old and they deliver great performance still, but the scent is of course faded. All right. This is a 7 out of 10 in terms of scent strength. It is on you, and there's no doubt about that. If you don't like strong scents, avoid this guy. All right, now 206 uses. Let's have at it. I've been using other blades now for a while and other razors, and so I'm used to, in many cases, a more comfortable shave. When you get to this level of age, at least with this blade, there's a little bit of tugging involved. But I am not going to put myself through a lot of discomfort. I'm getting some tugging now, and it is a little uncomfortable, but I believe that is just the fact that I'm shaving with 1.5 days of growth instead of just 1. More buffing is usually required with such an older blade, and if you're new or just haven't heard of buffing, it is when you go over the same area multiple times instead of just mowing one, switching over to new lather, mowing like that. You're kind of doing like I am with little strokes, shorter strokes like this, kind of repeating through the same area. All right. Rinse. Here's another one of those micro bubble lathers. If the camera will focus on that, and it's not super creamy. It is leaving a nice slick layer of protection on my fingers, but it's not really like a buttery slickness, but it's nice. I am very interested in 2 things. This shaving bowl has these ridges at the bottom of it that are helping to impart air into the lather. It's also got kind of a roughish texture. Both of these things could be contributing to the aeration of the lather. Also, it's the third thing, the addition of water so quickly. So I'm interested in maybe I might write down those little goals and see if I can use this same lather over again. See if I can change the way the lather comes across by changing some of those variables. When the water's added, you know how quickly it's added. The bowl itself, maybe switch to a smoother textured bowl. Was there a third one? I'll have to rewatch the video. I believe that I loaded for plenty of time. Now this pass here, delicious. No tugging, nothing like that. I don't go against the grain. I believe my I could probably do it on my face, on my cheeks. But my neck gets all irritated, razor burn, usually cuts. I think my hairs just kind of lay down so close to the surface that when they get pulled up by the blade with an ATG stroke, they lift up and bring some skin with them, is my best guess. All right. And I'm also going to stop using this blade when I stop getting acceptable shaves in terms of closeness. Now there we go. During that rinse right there, and I forgot how common this is, where the rinse after the first pass, it's almost like a clean up the dirt rinse. Rinse after the second pass is when often I'll start feeling the texture of the soap, the texture of the lather. And that was very nice, smooth and silky. So yeah, we have gotten to a nice luxurious place here in terms of face feel. There are other soaps, soap bases like Bison from Declaration Grooming and Icarus that maybe have a creamier feel in the fingers, you know. All right, third pass. Nice, comfortable shave here. The first pass, of course, was a little rougher since it had more than 1 days of growth on it. I am definitely going to do a touch-up pass on my neck here. Kind of mandatory for this age of a blade. And rinse. Well, I've often said, given the amount of scrub that this boar brush has due to its slow break-in, I've often said that I wouldn't want to use this brush right after using a really aggressive razor that perhaps softened my skin up, you know, made it a little tender, because this could definitely lay down some razor rash. Some brush burn is what you call it when the brush is the guilty party. You know, I didn't mean to shave this part, but why not? But so we'll see, because this might fall into that category because of the older blade. Feeling okay so far. Just taking it very easy, paying very close attention to my directions. Not bad, that's a good shave. Happy with that. One more little kind of pickup pass. Let's pull it this way this time. Stay within a certain area. If I go too far, I start to get really against the grain. And there we go. Let's see if that stirs up any irritation. But I'm happy with that shave. There's some length on a few of the tips there, but not a big deal concerning how old this blade is. And I think with most jobs, it wouldn't be an issue to walk in with this shave at all. Obviously, if you're in a high scrutiny type professional environment, then this may not cut it. All right, nice comfy shave, relatively speaking. And I just got some of this balm right here from Power Stick brand, and I bought a lot of gear, and this is one of the ones in there, and it is a soothing balm. So let's see if that is true. It's got kind of a peppermint, minty kind of, it is a thick pasty balm. Might have to augment this with a little bit of water. There was a Russian shaving cream in this lot. There was also some Arco aftershave, and I'd never tried Arco. Of course, I didn't never tried a Russian shaving cream before. And there was another Nivea. I used it the other day, the splash, the deep splash, and I think I like that pretty well. So yeah, it'll probably take, it's a little whitish now in my skin. It'll probably take a few minutes, like so many other balms out there, to really work it in. But I'll definitely be applying this with a little bit of water on my face in the future. It probably didn't cost too much because it's Power Stick. It's not like it's exclusive or anything. How about that? I usually don't like peppermint too much, but this is the season. And also it's not sticking around too much. It's not overbearing. So we'll see. We'll see. Sure, it feels pretty good on the face. What kind of ingredients are we talking about here? Oof, there's a lot of them. So if you're not into all the polysorbate 80s or, different weird ingredients, then this may not be one for you. All right. So 206, shave 206 is in the books. My goal is to do at least five here in the next 5 days, and we'll see if I want to, once I reach 210, see then if I want to immediately keep going for 220. I like to do it in 10 increments just for my own sanity, and then I'll have use some other razors that I've been missing in between those runs, How much lather do I have left? So that 40-second load with this brush turns out to be pretty much right on the money. I did 2 kind of touch-ups, so I have plenty enough lather for that, and then a little bit left over. Next time I'm going to try adding water slowly and see if the lather changes in consistency. Maybe feels a little bit more creamy, something like that. So yeah, it's a good smell. Wow. I also use this peppermint balm because my wife's not an Old Spice fan, and so I wanted to kind of mask the soap smell a little bit with something else. I know that soaps don't usually last too much longer than the shave, but I didn't want to take any chances. All right, well, I'm going to clean up. There are some hairs splitting, not a lot. Most that I could find were, kind of around the edge, and that is typical. But so eventually we'll get more to split. I've heard with some of the really stubborn knots, obviously there's some break-in accelerators, like, there's the very popular one about putting it in water, sticking it in your fridge, taking it out a few times a day, stropping it on a towel to kind of dry it off, as well as work the fibers, put it back in for another soak, and do that for 3 days. Tried that with an Omega, it didn't do anything. Also just soaking in general is another one. Hair dryer sometimes can help the tips to split, whether that's too aggressive of a technique that ends up with broken tips, I don't know. The one I use is just soaking a little bit before the shave, sometimes an hour or 3. In this case, obviously, it was overnight. I just recently read about one where you get water almost boiling, or you let it get to boiling and then you let it cool down just a little, and you take the tips and you dip them in. Maybe you have it soaking in cold or lukewarm water, and then you dip the tips in the almost boiling water, and that helps to increase the quickness of the split break-in. I read about somebody doing that. They had to do that cycle of into the boiling a few times, but then that act got them to where they wanted in terms of splitting tips. You could almost see them curl and things like that. This is going to have to be a really stubborn brush for me to do that to it. It is cheap, and so it's easy to buy another one in case it goes bad. But I've got 20 uses into this guy now. He's like a family friend, and watching him grow, really family child, really, member of the family. So. But if this and the Omegas that I have are really reluctant to, then I may try some more aggressive approach. But a lot of people just recommend just use them and try to let a day go in between uses, empty day, where maybe you're using another brush for the next shave. And so that way it gives a nice wet, dry cycle. All right. Just a light minty. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's not an overbearing peppermint. Yeah, happy with the shave. Irritation is 0. So that's a perk. Since I did put a few drops of lather on that first pass, it's a little bit more than 3 teaspoons. I'll just say 3 teaspoons plus. So that's how much water we used. I showed you how much soap we had at the end of the shave. Many times I take the blade out, put it in the envelope, but since I know I'm going to be using this exact razor and blade tomorrow, I separated the head a little bit by unscrewing it, gave it a good rinse, a shake to get the excess water out, and that is what I do between shaves when I know it's going to be consecutive. And then, of course, place it out of reach of children. All right, guys, there we go. It's all good. The razor was tuggy, but it was more growth than usual. We'll see how that changes next shave. 206 in the books. The balm seemed to work well. It's definitely a thicker balm than some might be used to, that I'm used to, with thicker than Stirling, Soap Commander, definitely thicker than the Nivea post-shave balms that you can find at the big box stores. But that's okay. Add a little water, and maybe you're getting more for your money if it's thicker. Just use a little bit less product. That could be a good thing. And happy with the brush. It wasn't scratchy. Didn't give me brush burn. I don't see any redness or anything like that. Definitely didn't get any nicks or anything. So I think we're good to march on to 210 and see how things go from there. All right. Well, man, I enjoyed the spice today. We'll use that same soap tomorrow and add water a little differently. See if maybe we can affect those little micro bubbles in some way. And so, yeah, my first pass it was a little disappointing, to be honest with you. Then I remembered, wait a minute, this happens a lot. The oils in my face, because I have oily skin, probably combined with that first pass to change it a little bit. Then the second and third passes were much more comfortable, nicer feeling rinses. And of course, I always had the slickness that I needed. No problem there. It's excellent. So there, it definitely improved on the second and third pass, and that is kind of normal for me. All right, guys. Well, take care. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and we'll do tomorrow again. Tomorrow. Bye.